I finally left my controlling wife after 20 years, then she whispered one sentence that changed everything. Hi, I'm Evan, 39, and 3 months after starting therapy my ex-wife leaned in close and whispered, "If you don't take me back, I'll go for full custody." I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just said, "Okay." And that single word detonated my entire life. I'm an operations supervisor at a regional freight company outside Dayton, Ohio. I'd been with my wife Lena, 38, since we were 19. Together almost 20 years. Married 14. 2 kids, Mason, 15, and Clara, 11. From the outside, we looked solid. Steady jobs. Decent house. Family photos where everyone was smiling just enough to pass. What people didn't see was how long I'd been living like a hostage who convinced himself it was love. Lena had a brutal childhood. Foster homes, neglect, the kind of background that makes people say, "No wonder she's like that." I bought into that explanation for years. I met her when she was sharp, funny, fiercely self-reliant. I thought if I loved her hard enough, consistently enough, I could be the safe place she never had. What I didn't understand at 20 was that her version of safety required control. Total control. At first it looked small. If I made plans without running them by her first, she'd go quiet for days. No yelling. Just silence so thick it followed me room to room. If I questioned it, she'd say, "I just need time to process." Not everything is an attack, Evan. So I learned to apologize for things I didn't understand. Then came the criticism. Constant, precise, devastating. Lena worked in corporate compliance, and she had a talent for tearing someone apart while sounding calm and reasonable. "I'm not insulting you," she'd say. "I'm giving feedback. You're too sensitive. If you were a better father, I wouldn't have to step in." Affection became conditional. If I agreed with her, things were warm. If I pushed back, the house went cold for weeks. No touch. No eye contact. Just the quiet punishment of being tolerated. I learned to monitor her moods like weather patterns. I learned which version of myself kept the peace. And worst of all, I watched my kids start doing the same thing. Mason became invisible. Headphones on, door closed, existing as little as possible. Clara turned into a miniature adult, polite, careful, never asking for anything. I told myself staying was protecting them. That if I left, things would be worse. The truth I couldn't face yet was that by staying, I was teaching them this was normal. And that illusion finally cracked one night at dinner, when my son said one sentence, and my wife decided to crush it. It was a Tuesday. Nothing dramatic. Just takeout containers and tired silence. Mason mentioned, casually, like he didn't want to be laughed at, that he was thinking about trying out for varsity basketball next year. He'd been lifting more. Running drills with a friend. There was this quiet hope in his voice that made my chest ache. Lena didn't even look up at first. Then she sighed. "Sweetheart, varsity is really competitive. You're more junior varsity material. And that's okay. Not everyone's meant to be exceptional." She said it gently. That was the part that made it worse. I watched my 15-year-old nod like he'd been expecting that answer. Like he'd already practiced accepting it. "Yeah," he said. "You're probably right." Something inside me snapped clean in half. "Actually," I said before I could stop myself, "I think you should go for it. Worst case, you don't make it. Best case, you surprise yourself." Lena's head turned slowly. That look. The one I knew better than my own reflection. "So now you're undermining me?" she asked. "Teaching him to chase fantasies instead of reality?" "I'm teaching him to believe in himself." "No," she said calmly. "You're teaching him to fail publicly." "But then again, you've never had great judgment about expectations, have you?" She smiled. "Just a little. Like when you thought you were ready for that promotion last year." "The promotion I didn't get because I turned down a relocation she said would damage the kids emotionally." Mason stared at his food. Clara froze mid-bite, eyes flicking between us, waiting to see if this would explode. That was the moment I saw it clearly. Not just the words. The pattern. The way she redirected disappointment, rewrote reality, and made everyone smaller so she could feel secure. "Kids," I said quietly, "go finish your homework." They vanished. Too fast. Like they'd been trained for it. I looked at Lena and said the sentence I'd rehearsed in my head for years. "I can't do this anymore." She laughed. Actually laughed. "You're being dramatic." "Pack a bag," I said. "I'm leaving tonight." Her smile vanished. "You'll regret this." Maybe. But I already regretted staying. I slept on my brother's couch that night. Then a small apartment. Then, slowly, something unexpected happened. I started breathing again. The constant knot in my chest loosened. I slept through the night. Mason started coming over, at first quiet, then talking. Really talking. He told me he felt calmer at my place. That he didn't feel like he was always about to mess something up. Clara took longer. She was still careful. Still perfect. But sometimes she laughed without checking anyone's reaction first. 8 months later, Lena called me crying. Therapy. Breakthroughs. Medication. Insight. "I finally understand what I did to you," she said. "I'm different now." I believed she was learning. I just didn't believe it changed what I knew. And when I told her I wasn't coming back, she leaned in close and said the words that turned everything nuclear. "If you don't take me back," she whispered, "I'll go for full custody." That's when I said, "Okay." And that's when the real war started. The thing about saying, "okay," to a threat like that is it robs the other person of momentum. Lena expected fear. Panic. Negotiation. Maybe me scrambling to prove I was reasonable, flexible, grateful she was doing the work. Instead, I switched everything to text and email, told her we'd only discuss schedules, school, and expenses, and stopped engaging in anything emotional. And that silence? It drove her insane. For about a week, she played nice. Polite messages. Cooperative tone. Look at us, mature adults. I almost believed we'd found a workable rhythm. Then she called. "I've been thinking," she said. "I need to show you I've changed." "You don't need to show me anything," I replied. "Just keep showing up for the kids." "That's not enough," she said. "We're still a family. Even separated." And there it was. She asked me to coffee. Then dinner. Just one date. For closure. For the kids. So they can see us trying. I said no. Her voice changed instantly. Colder. Sharper. "I'm vulnerable right now, Evan. I'm in therapy. I need support." "I support you getting help," I said. "I can't be your emotional support." Silence. "Then, if you're not willing to work on our relationship, maybe we need to reconsider custody." My stomach dropped. "You're threatening me." "I'm protecting the children." That was the moment I recognized the pattern in real time. Desire, refusal, guilt, punishment. Same script. New language. I hung up. 3 days later, I got an email from someone claiming to be her attorney. Vague. Polite. Best interests of the children. I forwarded it to a family lawyer and did exactly what she told me to do. Document everything. Texts. Calls. Pickup times. School emails. I stopped defending myself and started recording reality. That's when Lena shifted tactics. She stopped coming for me directly, and started coming for my reputation. My mom called first. Then my sister. Then a mutual friend. Same story every time. "She's worried about you. She says you're angry. She's scared your resentment is affecting the kids." The worst call came from Clara's school. "Mr. Hale," the counselor said gently, "we've received concerns about emotional instability in your home." I sat there, stunned, realizing she wasn't trying to win me back anymore. She was trying to erase me. And I knew, deep down, that this was the midpoint. The part where you either fold, or finally stop playing defense. I walked into the school meeting feeling like I was already on trial. The counselor was polite. Careful. But the questions told me everything. Has Clara seemed anxious at your home? Do you ever speak negatively about her mother? How are you coping emotionally with the separation? All based on Lena's concerns. Not anything Clara had said. Not a single incident. Just concern, that wonderfully flexible word. When I asked if Clara had actually reported being uncomfortable, the counselor hesitated. No, but children don't always verbalize distress. Right. But adults sure know how to project it. I left that meeting realizing something important. Staying quiet wasn't neutrality anymore. It was surrender. So I went on offense, calmly. I scheduled my own meetings. With the school. With teachers. With the assistant principal. I brought attendance records. Grades. Emails showing my involvement. I didn't badmouth Lena. I didn't defend myself emotionally. I just showed up as consistent, boring, stable. Then Mason came home one afternoon looking shaken. They pulled me out of class, he said. Asked if you told me what to say. Like I couldn't just want to live with you. That broke something open in me. She's doing it again, isn't she? He asked quietly. Making everyone think you're the problem. I got both kids into therapy, independent therapists, no overlap with Lena's providers. Not as a weapon. As a shield. Someone neutral who could actually hear them. Meanwhile, Lena escalated. Daily calls to family members. Vague social media posts about toxic co-parents and fighting for her babies. The more she talked, the less it added up. People started noticing. My brother called. If you're alienating the kids, he said, why is she calling everyone except a judge? The school called again, this time apologizing. The frequency of her contacts is becoming concerning. And when Mason's therapist asked to speak with me, she didn't reveal details. She didn't have to. He doesn't express anger toward his mother, she said. He expresses anxiety. About managing her emotions. That's when it finally clicked. This wasn't about custody. This was about control. And she was losing it. The papers arrived on a Friday afternoon, like she'd planned it that way on purpose. Emergency motion. Allegations of parental alienation. Requests for temporary custody changes. According to the filing, I was emotionally unstable, manipulative, and actively damaging the children's relationship with their mother. Lena, meanwhile, was presented as a reformed, self-aware parent bravely doing the work while being stonewalled by a bitter ex-husband. Reading it felt like stepping into an alternate universe where I was the villain in my own life. My lawyer didn't even blink. Litigation by ambush, she said. File first, shape the story, hope it sticks. She told me something that stuck. When someone can't control you directly anymore, they try to control the system around you. So I stopped reacting and started building. Not arguments. Evidence. I organized everything into timelines. Messages. Missed calls. Screenshots of social posts. School correspondence. Therapy appointment confirmations. I documented routines. Homework. Dinner schedules. Bedtimes. I wasn't trying to prove I was right. I was proving I was predictable. Stable. Lena, meanwhile, couldn't stop herself. She kept calling family. Kept escalating. Kept talking. And the more she talked, the clearer the pattern became to everyone else. At mediation, she showed up with a list of demands that had nothing to do with the kids and everything to do with me. Reduced visitation. Mandatory co-parenting counseling. Rebuilding the family unit. The mediator paused. Are you seeking reconciliation? I want what's best for my children, Lena said. Which requires us functioning as a unit. The mediator turned to me. Are you seeking reconciliation? No. And for the first time, Lena didn't have a script ready. He's being stubborn, she snapped. I've changed. He's punishing me for the past. The mediator wrote something down. Slowly. That was the moment I knew. She'd finally said the quiet part out loud. The room went very quiet after that. Not dramatic silence. The worst kind. The kind where professionals stop nodding and start observing. The mediator didn't argue with Lena. She didn't correct her. She just asked questions, slow, careful ones. How would forcing reconciliation benefit the children if one parent has clearly declined? Lena answered the way she always did when cornered. They need to see us work through conflict. Evan runs away when things get hard. I almost laughed. Almost. The mediator turned back to her notes. Several of your requests seem focused on increasing contact with your ex-husband rather than addressing specific parenting concerns. Lena's voice sharpened. Because he's the problem. And there it was again. Same dynamic. Different room. After mediation, my lawyer leaned over and said quietly, "She's unraveling." And she was. Over the next week, Lena doubled down instead of backing off. More calls. More emotional messages. More indirect pressure through relatives. But something had shifted. People weren't reacting the way they used to. My sister-in-law, who works in social services, pulled me aside at a family gathering. "This doesn't feel like concern," she said. "It feels like a campaign." The school counselor called again. This time, she sounded embarrassed. "We've received multiple daily contacts from Lena requesting updates we can't ethically provide." Translation: she overplayed her hand. Mason noticed it too. "She's spiraling," he said one night while we were doing dishes. "She does this when she's losing control." Hearing my kid articulate that so clearly was devastating and grounding. The court date approached. I focused on routines. Therapy appointments. Being boring. Being calm. Letting the noise happen without responding to it. Then the preliminary ruling came in. And for the first time since I said, "Okay," the ground shifted under her feet instead of mine. The temporary order landed in my inbox on a Wednesday morning. I stared at it for a full minute before opening it, bracing for impact the way you do before bad news you've already rehearsed surviving. But it wasn't bad. Mason was allowed to remain primarily with me. The court cited his age, consistency in schooling, and this part made my hands shake, his clearly expressed preference, given without evidence of coercion. Lena's emergency request was denied. Ren would continue alternating weeks, but with new conditions. No discussing adult conflicts with the children. No framing one parent as the obstacle to the other's happiness. All communication to remain written unless medically urgent. In legal language, it was dry. Emotionally, it was oxygen. Lena didn't take it well. Her messages went from icy politeness to frantic guilt trips in under 24 hours. "You've turned everyone against me. I can't believe you're letting strangers decide our family. Ren cried last night asking why you hate me." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood the difference between compassion and compliance. Mason read the order over my shoulder and exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. "So, I'm not crazy?" he asked. "No," I said. "You never were." Ren didn't say much. She just leaned into me harder that night when I tucked her in. The thing that hit me hardest wasn't winning. It was realizing how close I came to losing simply because I'd spent 2 decades being trained not to trust my own reality. Lena kept insisting she changed. And maybe she had, on the surface. But when the outcome wasn't what she wanted, the old machinery fired right back up. Control. Pressure. Narrative. Only this time, it didn't work. It's been a few months now. Things are quiet. Not perfect. Not easy. But calm in a way that still feels unfamiliar. Mason made varsity. Not because he was the best player, but because he worked like hell and stopped believing he was destined to fail before trying. He keeps the acceptance letter on his wall like proof that his voice matters. Rin is still careful, but she laughs more. She asks for things now. Small things. Big progress. Lena is still in therapy. I genuinely hope it helps her. I hope she finds peace that doesn't require control. But I've accepted something important. Her healing doesn't require my participation. We co-parent through apps and email. It's dull. It's respectful. It's exactly what the kids need. People still have opinions. Some think I should have tried harder. Others quietly admit they're relieved I finally stopped absorbing the damage for everyone else. What I know is this. I didn't leave because I stopped loving her. I left because I finally loved myself, and my kids, enough to stop normalizing harm. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't demand sacrifices. And it never threatens to take your children if you don't comply. Saying okay to her threat wasn't surrender. It was the moment I stepped out of the pattern. And this time, it held.